Isaac Halburn stumbled into the corridor outside Lecture Hall 8 with his shirt torn at the shoulder, one leg of his trousers caked in orange mud, and a fresh gash above his left eyebrow. A few of the alien students waiting outside gasped, their eyes some round, some triangular, one blinking and rotating shutters fixated on the bruises darkening his forearms. A purple welt stretched across his collarbone like a spilled ink stain. One thin, green-skinned student clutched his data pad to his chest. "You are wounded," it said, voice buzzing through its translator collar. Isaac leaned against the wall, breathing hard. "Yeah, I noticed." Another alien, a tall, feathered being with a neck that swiveled like a periscope, stepped closer. "Should we summon medical? You appear structurally compromised." They already did. Isaac winced as he adjusted his weight. "And relax. I've seen worse." That drew a fresh wave of gasps. One student actually dropped their tablet. Before anyone could press further, the door behind them hissed open and Dean Vellet's assistant, a squat creature with translucent skin, stepped out. "Halburn, the dean will see you now." Isaac pushed off the wall, limped past the line of stunned students, and entered the office. The door sealed behind him. Dean Vellet sat behind a desk that resembled a cross between a jellyfish tank and a chessboard. He gestured with a tendril. "Mr. Halburn, your field report arrived incomplete. And now this." His gaze flicked to Isaac's bruises. "Would you care to explain?" Isaac dropped into the chair opposite him and let out a long breath. It was supposed to be a simple ecosystem survey on Corellan Prime. Just soil samples and air quality checks. I wasn't expecting the gravity to shift mid-hike. It shifted. Local tectonics triggered a subplate roll, pulled half the ridge down while I was on it. I had to climb out. Vellet's tendrils twitched. "Why didn't you request extraction?" "I did." The signal bounced off the canyon walls for 3 hours before it finally reached orbit. By then I was already halfway up. You climbed a canyon wall with a sprained ankle, a fractured rib, and... What is this? He gestured vaguely to Isaac's face. "Branch. Sharp one." The dean stared at him for a long moment. "We could have lost you. But you didn't." Vellet let out a low hum. "Still, you'll be grounded until medical clears you. I'll notify your instructors." Isaac nodded. "Fair." Outside, the alien students were still murmuring when he emerged. Some stepped back to make room. One, a blue-scaled female with 4 eyes, took a hesitant step forward. "You did not scream," she said softly, "when you arrived, even though your body is clearly compromised." "I don't scream," Isaac said. "It doesn't help." The student blinked in unison. "That is unsettling." He gave her a tired look. "Try falling down a cliff and see how you feel about screaming." He limped away before she could reply. Medical was a sleek facility nestled between the astrophysics labs and the Xenolinguistics Center. Isaac lay still while the scanner passed over him, humming softly. Nurse Talvin, a no-nonsense woman from Grelver Prime, studied the monitor and frowned. "You've got 3 cracked ribs, not 1. And your ankle's worse than a sprain. Hairline fracture. You're lucky it didn't snap clean." "Lucky's a strong word. You should be in bed." "I was." She gave him a look. "Fine. I will be." 2 days later, Isaac was back in class, limping but upright. The bruises were fading, but slowly. He walked into xenopsychology late and tried to slide into his seat quietly. It didn't work. Professor Nelser paused mid-lecture. "Mr. Halburn, back from your canyon adventure, I see." Isaac nodded. "Wouldn't miss your class, Professor." The alien students turned in unison. Most still looked at him like he was made of unstable material. One raised a hand. "Did it hurt?" Isaac glanced at the speaker, a small, fur-covered being with glittering eyes. "Yes." "Then why did you continue climbing?" "I had 2 choices. Climb or stay down there and maybe die. Climbing hurt. Staying hurt worse." Professor Nelser tilted his head. "Humans often weigh survival against pain with surprising results." "Pain's not a reason to stop," Isaac said. "It's just something you deal with." The professor nodded slowly. "Fascinating." After class, a few students lingered. One, a tall, armor-plated male from the Varnak system, approached. "I reviewed your species' medical thresholds. Your injuries should have rendered you unconscious." "Don't believe everything you read," Isaac said. Another student joined them, a slender amphibious one named Rel. "Your reaction to damage is illogical. Pain's not supposed to be logical." Rel tilted his head. "Then why do you endure it?" Isaac shrugged. "Because stopping would mean giving up." Rel made a note on his data pad. Later that week, During intercultural strategy class, the instructor arranged a trust exercise. Students were paired randomly and told to complete a scavenger hunt across the campus. Isaac was partnered with Varn, the armored student who had doubted his pain tolerance. "You will need to move quickly," Varn said as they started down the sloped pathways toward the botanical wing. "I'll limp fast." Varn hesitated. "Perhaps I should carry you." "Try and I'll bite." Varn blinked. "You would attack me?" "No. It's a figure of speech." 10 minutes in, they were halfway through the list when a tremor shook the sidewalk. Varn steadied himself against a wall. "Is this a common occurrence?" "Only when the hydrocore drills spin up." "It's harmless." The next tremor dislodged a crate from a delivery drone above. It crashed into the walkway ahead, scattering debris. Isaac instinctively pulled Varn back, shielding him with his own body as a metal panel scraped across his arm. Varn stared at him. "You shielded me from impact." "You're welcome. You were already injured." "Yeah, and now I'm a little more injured." Isaac looked at the cut on his arm. Still not the worst. Varn was silent the rest of the walk back. Later that evening, Isaac sat in the infirmary again. The cut had needed 6 stitches. While Nurse Talvin worked, she glanced at him. "You ever take it easy?" "I try. Life doesn't always cooperate. You're pushing your luck." Isaac looked at her. "Isn't that the whole point of being here?" She sighed. "You're going to need to keep that arm clean. No weight on it for at least a week." Noted. When he returned to class the next day, the bruises were darker, and the stitches on his arm peeked from under his sleeve. A new group of students gasped. One pointed. "You are deteriorating." "I'm healing." "You bleed more than any species I have studied." "Yeah, it's one of our hobbies." Professor Nelser called the room to order. Today's topic, resilience as a cultural trait. He looked directly at Isaac. "Mr. Halburn, would you care to begin?" The chair Isaac sat in creaked faintly as he shifted, favoring his left side. His arm was wrapped in a slim, breathable bandage that clung from elbow to wrist, and each movement pulled faintly at the stitches beneath. The room had gone silent the moment Professor Nelser called on him. Every alien in the semicircular classroom had swiveled toward him, their varying sets of eyes watching with unnerving stillness. "I guess it depends on what you mean by resilience," Isaac said, adjusting the edge of his sleeve. "If you mean bouncing back, then yeah, humans are pretty good at that. But it's not always about strength. Sometimes it's just stubbornness." A broad, metallic student with a segmented snout raised a hand. "Is that a biological adaptation?" "No," Isaac said. "More of a cultural one. Maybe psychological. We don't always know when to quit." "Sometimes that's useful." The student tapped something into his console. "In my species, persistence without purpose is considered a flaw. Same for us. But we call it bravery when it works." A low chuckle rippled through a few students. Professor Nelser folded his lower arms and leaned against the console. "Give us an example not already covered by your recent excursion," he said. "Something less physically dramatic." Isaac paused. "Okay. Back home, my uncle lost both his legs in a construction collapse. Steel beam fell. Doctors gave him prosthetics, but the nerve interface was twitchy. He still got up every morning at 5 to run laps around his street. Said it hurt less if he kept moving." A thin, crystalline being near the back clinked softly. "And that was tolerated?" "Encouraged," Isaac replied. "People brought him food. Cheered when he shaved minutes off his time. He even raced once. Lost badly. Didn't care." The crystalline student tilted its head. "Fascinating. Among my kind, loss of limb disqualifies one from public contribution." "Well, we don't like wasting people," Isaac said. "Just because a part stops working doesn't mean the whole person does." The classroom fell into a reflective hush. One of the twin-headed students near the front leaned forward. "Doesn't the pain interfere with your function?" "Sure," Isaac said. "But we learn to work around it. Bodies break. It's what you do after that counts." Professor Nelson nodded once. "That will be quite sufficient." As the session ended, students filed out slowly, some still stealing glances at Isaac's arm. He lingered behind, gathering his things with one hand. A slender creature with a silvery membrane instead of skin stood nearby, its posture hesitant. "I reviewed several dozen human case studies last night," it said, "all involving extreme endurance. Is it expected of you to suffer and continue?" "That's not the goal," Isaac said, slinging his bag over his shoulder carefully. "But it happens. We're not built to last. So we find ways to keep going anyway." The creature's eyes dilated. "That seems inefficient." "You're not wrong." Outside, the air was cooler than expected. The sun filtered through the translucent canopy above the walkway, casting shifting colors across the path. Isaac kept to the edge, his pace steady but uneven. Around him, students of every imaginable form moved in clusters, some whispering in tones too high or low for him to hear. He didn't look up until someone fell into step beside him. It was Rel, the amphibious student from earlier. He carried a folded schematic in his upper set of limbs, and his lower ones twitched with what Isaac had come to recognize as nervous energy. "I was wondering," Rel said, "how long it took your body to recover from the fall." "Still recovering," Isaac said. "But I was walking again by the second day." Rel stopped walking. "That's not possible. Your muscle tissues should have remained in shock for at least 3 cycles." "Guess mine didn't get the memo." Rel resumed walking, more slowly this time. "Do you believe your biology is exceptional? Or is this common among your people?" "We're not all built the same," Isaac said. "But yeah, we bounce back fast. Sometimes too fast." They reached the entrance to the biocomposite lab. Rel hesitated again. "My people heal through induced hibernation," he said. "We slow everything down. No movement. No stress on the body. It's the opposite of what you do." "Probably smarter," Isaac said. "But we're not good at waiting." Inside the lab, the scent of damp soil and sterilized equipment filled the air. Rel led the way to one of the workstations, where a cluster of experimental growth chambers pulsed faintly. "I've been developing a synthetic exotissue," Rel said. "It adapts to minor injuries by reinforcing the surrounding area. I think it could help your species." Isaac raised an eyebrow. "You built Band-Aids for bones?" Rel blinked slowly. "I don't know what that means." "Never mind. Show me." For the next half hour, Rel explained the growth patterns, nutrient matrices, and pressure distribution ratios. Isaac listened, occasionally flexing his fingers to test the range of motion in his injured arm. Eventually, Rel paused. "You are not a scientist." "Nope." "Then why are you here?" Isaac shrugged. "Because I keep ending up in places where things fall apart. Figured I should learn how to put them back together." Rel was quiet for a long moment. "There's a field trial next week," he said. "I could use a test subject." "You want me to wear your alien duct tape?" "It's not duct tape." Isaac grinned. "I'm in." By the time he left the lab, the sun had shifted again. The colors outside had deepened, casting strange shadows across the courtyard. A few students still glanced at him in passing, but their expressions had changed. Less curiosity, more calculation. Later that evening, he sat on the upper terrace of the dormitory, arm propped on a makeshift sling fashioned from an old towel. A soft chime sounded behind him, and Varn approached, carrying 2 steaming containers. "I observed that you did not attend the nourishment cycle." "Got distracted," Isaac said. Varn held out one of the containers. "You should consume this. It is high in mineral content. Supports bone repair." Isaac took it. "Thanks." Varn sat beside him, careful to keep his armored limbs from scraping the rail. "I have reviewed over 100 human injury accounts since we last spoke," he said. "I cannot determine whether your species is reckless or astonishing. Probably both." Varn tilted his head. "Your capacity for continued function despite damage is not solely physical. There is something else." "Guilt, mostly," Isaac said. "We don't like letting people down, even if it hurts." Varn looked out over the campus. "We were taught that the human emotional spectrum is volatile, that it interferes with logic." "It does," Isaac said. "But it also gets us out of bed." They ate in silence for a while, the sounds of distant lectures and equipment hum drifting through the air. Eventually, Varn said, "Would you do it again? Climb that ridge, knowing what would happen?" Isaac didn't hesitate. "Yeah, probably faster next time." Varn was quiet for a moment, then nodded. "That is instructive." The next morning, Isaac arrived early to comparative ethics. His seat was already surrounded. A group of students had gathered, whispering in tones too varied to follow. When he reached his desk, they parted slightly but didn't leave. One of them, a tall, translucent student with hair like flowing mesh, leaned forward. "There's a debate scheduled next week. Topic is moral obligation under physical duress. You should represent the human side." "I'm not exactly a philosopher." "Doesn't matter. You've lived it." Isaac hesitated. "All right, I'll do it." The student nodded once, then vanished back into the crowd. As he sat down, Professor Nelser entered. "Today," he said, "we begin our segment on ethical paradox. Let us begin with a question. If survival requires the harm of self, is it still justified?" Isaac leaned back, cradling his healing arm, and said nothing. but the entire room turned toward him anyway. The hall was already half full when Isaac entered, his left arm wrapped in Raoul's synthetic exo-tissue brace, now a translucent, flexible layer that shimmered faintly under the overhead lights. The debate stage had been configured in a wide, circular format, with rising tiers of students forming a loose amphitheater around it. Two tall poles displayed the topic in bold glyphs that translated to obligation and adversity, when self-preservation conflicts with duty. He walked past a group of whispering students, most of them unfamiliar. One of them, a sleek finned creature with rotating eyes, tracked him silently all the way to the stage. Isaac adjusted the strap of his bag and climbed the 2 shallow steps to the platform, squinting up at the moderator, a dry-skinned Trifaxan with a voice like a rattling sieve. "You will begin second," the moderator said without preamble. "Your opponent requested the opening." Isaac nodded. "Makes my job easier." A murmur rustled through the audience. Sitting across from him was a tall, red-plated Ilthari named Sank, who held her posture with military rigidity. Her voice, when she began, was crisp and unwavering. "Duty is meaningless without self-preservation. Any act of service performed while impaired compromises the objective. One who is injured must withdraw. To remain is to risk others." Sank stepped back, her statement clearly intended as a blow. A few students nodded. Isaac waited a moment before stepping forward. "I get your point," he said. "But withdrawal isn't always an option. Sometimes you're the last line. You think my ribs cared whether the job was finished?" A ripple of laughter passed through the back row. Sank didn't flinch. "You imply that pain is irrelevant. That is illogical." "It's not irrelevant," Isaac said. "It's just not in charge." Sank leaned forward slightly. "And when that leads to failure? Then you fail trying, not hiding." The moderator cut in. "Please limit cross-exchange." "Human representative, continue." Isaac glanced at the audience, his eyes catching Rel's near the back, seated beside Varn. Both looked strangely tense. "People assume the body's condition defines its limits," he said. "But the mind plays a bigger role. A soldier with a broken leg can still pull someone out of a fire. A medic with a bruised lung can stabilize a dying patient. You're not done until you decide you are." Sank tilted her head. "Even if proceeding guarantees greater injury?" Isaac nodded. "Some things are worth that." The moderator exhaled a long wheeze. Closing statements. Sank stepped forward again. "Suffering impairs clarity. Clarity ensures survival. To ignore damage is to invite loss. Duty must never exceed capacity." Isaac didn't move from his spot. "If we only ever acted at full strength, nothing hard would ever get done. History's full of people who moved forward when they shouldn't have. They didn't always win, but they mattered." The room stilled. A few students tapped notes into their data pads. Others just watched him with unreadable expressions. The moderator let silence hang before announcing, "Debate concluded. Observers may submit evaluations." As the crowd began to disperse, Sank approached him on the stage. Her expression was unreadable behind her reflective facial plates. "You spoke in contradiction." "Probably," Isaac said. "But that doesn't make it wrong." She regarded him for a long beat, then turned and walked away without another word. By late afternoon, the sky over the campus had darkened, the artificial weather system releasing a light, consistent drizzle. Isaac sat beneath a covered walkway near the central plaza, his left hand cradling a cup of nutrient broth that steamed faintly in the cool air. Rel joined him without asking, easing onto the bench with the slow, deliberate movements unique to his species. "You didn't mention the brace," he said. "Didn't need to." It held up. Rel glanced at the bandage's edge, where the material gently pulsed in response to muscle tension. It responded well to strain. Better than in the simulations. Isaac sipped his broth. "Feels like a second skin." "Just don't ask me to lift anything heavier than a textbook." "Would you wear it again? If it means I don't tear something the next time I fall down a ravine?" "Sure." Rel shifted slightly. "I logged the stress data. I think I can improve the tension zones." "You're really dedicated to this." "I didn't build it for humans at first," Rel said. "It was meant for aquatic laborers on my home colony. But they wouldn't test it. Said it looked unnatural." Isaac glanced sideways. "You need someone broken enough to try things no one else will." Rel's throat sac shifted in what Isaac had learned was his equivalent of a nod. "You were the first to say yes." Isaac let the quiet hang for a while before asking, "You ever push past your own limits?" "I don't have the same structure. My reflexes are built to retreat when strain is detected." "Must be nice." "It's limiting. I observe you and wonder what failure feels like to your kind." Isaac stared into his cup. Immediate. Loud. And if you're lucky, not permanent. They sat in silence until Varn approached, his gait more measured than usual. He waited until Rel acknowledged him before speaking. The debate was archived. Over 10,000 views already. Did I win? Isaac asked. There was no scoring. But your final statement has been quoted in 8 separate forums. Which part? The one about not being done until you decide you are. Isaac laughed softly. That's just something my grandfather used to say when his knees locked up. Varn looked at him. Your species converts suffering into heritage. Not always on purpose. The plaza lights flickered on as the drizzle intensified. Isaac adjusted the towel under his brace. You ever get tired, Rel asked, of being an example? Isaac rubbed his temple with his free hand. I didn't plan to be one. I fell off a cliff and didn't die. Everything after that's just been improv. Varn sat on the far end of the bench, arms resting on his knees. Your resilience is not in your tissues. It's in your framing of failure. That's generous. It's accurate, Rel said. Isaac scanned the plaza. Across the square, a group of first-year students were trying to lift a broken transport crate stuck in the mud. None of them looked older than 20. He stood with a wince. I can't lift, he said, but I can yell constructive advice. Rel stood with him. I'll log brace stress. If you fall again, I'll have new data. Varn followed last. I will ensure you do not fall. They crossed the plaza, boots and pads sloshing through the thin film of water. The students glanced up as Isaac approached, their expressions a mix of confusion and awe. One of them, a wiry creature with 6 elbows, pointed at his brace. You're the human from the debate. Unfortunately, the crate was wedged under a collapsed bench, its edges warped from impact. Isaac crouched carefully and examined the angle. You're pulling from the wrong side, he said. You're just locking it tighter. The students hesitated. When asked, are you certified for this? Nope, but I've broken enough things to know how not to. They adjusted their grip as he instructed. Rel recorded the interaction from the side, while Varn braced the crate's far end with his shoulder. With a coordinated heave, the crate came loose. One of the students stared at Isaac. You didn't actually lift anything. Good habits, he said. Energy conservation. They watched him walk away, heads tilted in thought. Back under the walkway, Rel updated his datapad. Brace integrity unchanged. That's promising. Glad I could stress test your science through minor heroism. Varn nodded once. You are functional again. For now. Isaac leaned against the wall, letting the rain mist his face from the edge of the awning. Rel closed his tablet. Varn folded his arms. The plaza quieted as students returned to their dorms. I've been thinking, Rel said. Dangerous, Isaac replied. You made failure sound useful. It has to be, Isaac said. Otherwise it's just pain. They stood there until the lights dimmed, signaling the start of evening cycle. Isaac turned to leave, brace flexing smoothly beneath his sleeve. Rel called after him. If you ever fall again, I'll aim for softer ground. Varn exhaled. You will not fall. Isaac raised a hand without turning around. No promises. And with that, he disappeared down the walkway, leaving only the sound of rain and 3 students watching the spot where he'd stood, each quietly rethinking what it meant to break and what it meant to keep going.